Welcome in to another episode of the Camper Report. And we've got an interesting one for you guys today. I was going to go live last night breaking down the Niners draft, but instead we're going to go live today. I was just breaking down every single pick on the Niners that they drafted yesterday and over the past couple days. And then I was like, you know what? Not even going to wait till tonight to go live. I'm going to wait till right after I get my grade and kind of a good sense of every single player that the Niners have drafted. Because here's the thing. My initial reactions to the first couple of picks that the Niners had weren't great. I still do not like the Kalen Black extraordinary reach in the third round, and I'll get to that. But the Dejon Stribling pick, the Romello Height pick, I'm not hating where those picks went. I loved the Grayson Holton, that's his name, right? The Grayson Holton pick as well. And then I thought Carver Willis, the left tackle that we drafted out of Washington, that pick was a really good pick. So I'm going to go through every single, and by the way, if you guys are feeling particularly passionate about the draft, link in the description, call in, we can take a few minutes to talk, but I'm going to grade every single player, and then I'm going to go through what this draft screams for me. I'm going to go through the kind of the irony with the first three picks, why I think especially the Kalen Black pick is going to be a mistake based off of previous drafts. And then, so let's get through basically grading every pick. Dejon Stribling, this is a guy, big-bodied, fits kind of the mold of the receiver that the Niners have been looking for under Brock Purdy. Now, because we've known this, we've seen this, Brock Purdy, shorter quarterback, likes those big-bodied receivers that he can throw it a little bit out of their catch radius. It doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. It can be sailing over the middle. Because he's a shorter quarterback, he can't necessarily see everything when he's in the pocket. So he's a big-bodied receiver who fits what Brock Purdy does. Great run after the catch receiver. Kyle is going to be able to scheme certain slant routes, certain screens, and because he has that 4.3 speed, he's going to be able to get some separation, break away from, there were multiple plays in college. The wide receiver out of Ole Miss, I forgot to specify that, but there were a lot of plays where we saw Dejon Stribling get a 5-yard slant route and turn it into 15 yards. Age is a thing. He's 23. He's turning 24, I believe, in October. You saw him in college run a bunch of comeback routes, but he's not a super fluid receiver. So he's more of a burner. Now, I saw somebody say that this is why in the world are we drafting him at pick 33 when he fits a similar mold to Jordan Watkins, who went to the same school and we drafted in round 3 last year. He is a bigger receiver, I think. And at first I was like, where is he? Like, is he going to get snaps this year? I could see the Niners playing Ricky Pearsall, who we've said needs to be in the slot, better at slot receiver. And then I could see him playing the other outside wide receiver, Mike Evans on one side, on the short side of the field, and Dejon Stribling on the other side. So he could be an immediate starter. I wouldn't rule that out. So, but there is the thing of like, that wasn't our biggest need at pick number 33. So could play outside, but then also he's an over the middle receiver big bodied receiver that could play in the slot as well. So the only reason why, and this is why I quickly wanted to get to the irony to these picks. Maybe he will. So if we look at the 49ers, the draft tracker, the draft board, let me pull up the NFL, the draft board and who got picked after Dejon Stribling. And this is why it kind of annoys me and the irony behind this pick. Because we said that, you know, if you're looking at the receivers that got drafted after Dejon Stribling, so Denzel Boston in the second round after. Denzel Boston. There was just one receiver after Dejon Stribling who got picked in the second round, which should tell you about how people were viewing wide receivers. They didn't like him in the second round. But Denzel Boston was one that got. Antonio Williams was the next pick at 71. Maybe this guy, maybe Dejon Stribling. I see a real world where Dejon Stribling becomes, you know, the third or fourth best receiver in this draft. But we said that there's a strict drop-off in interior offensive linemen outside of the second round from Chase Besantis and really Chase Besantis. There is a strict drop-off in guards and tackles. If you wait to draft one in the third round, there is a strict drop-off in the talent-wise. So yes, Dejon Stribling could be one of the better wide receivers to come out of this draft. But at pick number 33, it's like I would have much rather gotten a TJ Parker or a Chase Besantis, who went 1 and 2 picks later, because there were stricter drop-offs at that position, right? From the second to third round. You know, and so because Chase Besantis, of the guards that went in round 2, it's Chase Besantis, and then we saw no more guard go until Logan Jones was the center. Jake Slaughter in the second round. The third round produced Markel Bell, a tackle. And then we saw, who's the guy I'm thinking of out of Oregon? Austin Barber went pick 86. Emmanuel Pregnon went pick 88. And so after those guys, there's a strict drop-off. Why not wait in a little bit more loaded of a wide receiver class, maybe go round, 3 or 4 to draft a wide receiver I really liked Kendrick Law, the receiver from Kentucky, who went in the 4th or 5th round. And that was the case with a couple of these picks. It's like, yeah, then this is a need, but the value isn't there. That was really my thing with Dejon Stribling. So I would rate this pick a C, because genuinely he is a bigger and more explosive Deebo Samuel, which really excites me what Kyle Shanahan can do with him in this system. But there were guys that consensus-wise would have been a way bigger pick, and clearly the Niners don't go off of consensus, but I just don't I don't understand why exactly because it's good to go off of consensus sometimes and not all the times. You want to obviously but look at the best general manager in the league, Howie Roseman, and he most of the time goes off of the consensus board, and he hardly ever misses on NFL draft picks. So, and I wanted to quickly bring this up. A look at, before we get to the rest of the guys, because I'm getting on a train of thought here. A look at the previous drafts and the sharp decline in depth on the Niners team. So if we're looking at previous drafts on the Niners, 2025, we don't know yet how this draft class is going to turn out. But the Niners drafted Mykel Williams, torn ACL, Alfred Collins, rotational piece, Nick Martin hasn't seen the field yet. Upton Stout, probably the best player in the draft class. CJ West, not super impactful. Jordan Watkins hasn't played, might not even make the roster this year. Jordan James, we'll see. Marquez Siegel, backup safety in the 5th round. That's okay. Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby, Junior Bergen. Connor Colby sucked when he played. Marquez Siegel is okay. Curtis Rourke, backup quarterback, took a whole year off to recover from the ACL. So that's 2025. We don't know yet on that draft class. But then let's look at 2024's draft class, okay? Ricky Pearsall, injury prone. Renardo Green, he's okay. But I'm going to get into Ephesians Prysock later. I actually really like that pick. Dominic Pooney, plug and play guard. That's a good pick. Malik Mustafa, starting safety, but he's okay. Alex Mustafa isn't Pro Bowler yet, at least. Isaac Garendo, probably off the team. Jacob Cowing, probably off the team. Jarrett Kingston, I think we cut him. Tatum Bethune, that was a good pick in the 7th round. So 2024, 2025, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say those are bad drafts because we don't have enough data. But then let's look at the 2020 to 2023 range, which is really what I want to touch on. So 2020, we had Javon Kinlaw, bust. Brandon Ayuk lost his mind. We only had 5 picks in that draft. Colton McKivitz, okay, that's okay. Starting, man, we had no picks. We had 2 firsts, and then we had a 5th, 6th, and 7th. What the heck? Colton McKivitz, starting right tackle, serviceable. That's great. Charlie Warner off the team, not a great tight end. Jawan Jennings, he's okay. But we only had 5 picks. So that was a decent draft class, 2020. Now let's look at 2021. Okay. So Trey Lance, bust. Aaron Banks, overrated. Never really, I mean, he was an okay starter, but wasn't great in pass protection. He was an okay pick. Trey Sermon, bust. Ambry Thomas. And really what I want to point out here is how many misses the Niners, and this is why I hate the Kalen Black pick, because how many misses have the Niners had at running back in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? It's incredible. Truly. Trey Sermon, this is the 3rd round in the 2021 draft. Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas, Jalen Moore. Ambry Thomas, Trey Sermon both did not pan out at all. Jalen Moore, he was all right. No, actually, Jalen Moore, swing tackle, isn't on the team. Was really just a career backup, 5th round. That's okay. Lenore, 5th round as well. Talanoa Funga, Elijah Mitchell, not on the team. This was an okay draft, but let's highlight, like I said, let's highlight that 3rd round in the 2021 draft. Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas, and then, the next pick after that, Jalen Moore. Another terrible 3rd round. 2022, we had Terrion Davis Price. We had Drake Jackson, not on the team. Terrion Davis Price, not on the team. Danny Gray in the 3rd round, not on the team. Spencer Burford, okay. He was a 4th round pick. Wasn't great. Took a long time to develop. Not on the team. Samuel Womack, I think he was a decent backup. I believe he was starting for like the Giants or somebody. Nick Sikel, terrible pick. Kalia Davis, not on the team. Tariq Castro Fields, not on the team. Brock Purdy, of course, saved that draft class. And then the final one, 2023. This was a terrible one. Jair Brown, Jake Moody, Cameron Latu. Jair Brown hasn't panned out. Jake Moody, we know what happened to him. Cameron Latu was off the team in 2 years. Darrell Luter Jr., career backup, nothing special. Don't ever want him to see a snap. Good special teams player, but not great. That's another 5th round miss. Robert Beal Jr., terrible. D. Winters, just traded him. Didn't like him. Braden Willis, not on the team. Roddy Bell, not on the team. Jalen Graham, not on the team. So those are like the last 5 drafts. And like maybe 20% of those players are not on the team. And when John Lynch asked about reaching for players in the draft, he said, and why last year's draft was a successful draft, he said, well, every single one of the players that we drafted from last year's draft is still on the team. That should not be a reason for a draft being a successful draft. And one of the arguments that I was seeing across the internet over the last couple days when everyone was going crazy after the Niners' second and third round picks, one of the arguments I was seeing from John Lynch defenders was, well, how have the Niners been so good for years and years and years? But if you look at the sharp decline of depth in 2019, the first couple years of the 49ers, the Lynch-Shanahan era, we had really good drafts. Core staple players that were depth pieces that we can quickly go over that too, but for the sake of time, we're already 16 minutes through the show, so I'm not going to go through that. I already just spent the last, 5 or 6 minutes going through the Niners' last 5 drafts. But we were able to build up a core group of guys as well as depth that could come in if a guy was injured and play meaningful snaps for this football team. But over the last 5 years, we have seen a sharp decline in the Niners' depth where, we still have those core players like Kittle, like Fred Warner, like, who's another one? Kittle, Fred Warner, Colton McKivitz, I guess you could throw in there. We had Debo, we had Brandon Ayuk, but there hasn't been depth behind those guys. The Niners haven't had good depth that if a guy gets injured, some other guy can come in and play, a high level of football. The last 5 years, the depth has strongly declined. In the 2019 Super Bowl team, I remember we were one of the most injured teams that year, and we were still able to win games and go to the Super Bowl because the one I'm thinking of is Joe Staley, how we were able to – Joe Staley went out, and we were able to replace him with the backup left tackle. His name is escaping me at the time. Same with Mike McGlinchey. We were able to replace Mike McGlinchey with, there were 2 guys that I can't remember. But both of our tackles at one point during that 2019 season were out, and we did not miss a beat because we had great depth on the offensive line. But because so many of these guys the last 5 years haven't panned out that we've drafted, let's look at the defensive line. Last year, we had no defensive line. We had no depth because Drake Jackson from 2021 never panned out because Jalen Graham, who was supposed to be a good edge rusher, ended up being terrible, and we drafted him in the 5th round. Linebacker, you could even point to. I know that was a deeper position, but last year, if we didn't sign Eric Kendricks off the street, that linebacker play from D. Winters and those other guys was subpar. So, and we haven't been able to successfully draft a swing tackle in the last 5 years that can back up Trent Williams. Austin Pleasance was terrible last year when he faced the Seahawks, got exposed. So, yes, but the Niners have been good. But we've been clinging to an aging core of stars and then we've traded for Christian McCaffrey, give him credit for that, but he's not a guy we've drafted. All the success the Niners have had is from holding on to the players that we drafted those first 3 years of the Shanahan-Lynch regime, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then trading for guys and signing guys. But let's be real. Over the last 4 or 5 drafts, there are a couple players that are impact players, but not really on this team. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make with that. Let's get back to grading the Niners picks, though. And as I'm going along grading these, I'm going to bring up other points as well. But let's get to the Niners' next pick. That was Romello Height. So I had a C grade on Dejon Stribling. Romello Height, edge rusher from Texas Tech. I had a B grade, B plus grade. I hated this pick at first just because it's not an edge rusher I would have taken at that pick. I would have taken Denai Dennis Sutton. I would have taken the Joshua Josephs out of Tennessee, the edge rusher. But as I started to watch a little bit more film on Romello Height, kind of the talent that he has, he's 25, so that's a big concern. Like, he might not even make it to a second contract on his team, because his second contract is going to be when he's 29. So that's one thing, is his age. But here's a guy who didn't break out till his last year because he had a shoulder surgery early in his career. He played at Georgia Tech for a while, but he didn't have a lot of talent surrounding him at Georgia Tech. He still put on, like, at first when I saw, oh, this guy's really only had one good year of production, which was at Texas Tech. But then when I started watching his film the last couple days from Georgia Tech, he had pretty good film. It's just that it didn't necessarily, he dealt with injuries, and then it didn't necessarily translate. Like, he had 4 sacks per season at Georgia Tech. But kind of the draft grade, or the draft analysis on him, really quick first step and rip move. Great bend. One of the fastest first step edge rushers in this draft, as well as you pair that with, he has great hands, a great swim move, great bend to where he's starting off and then he's bending around that tackle, getting low. Hard to get a hand on if you're a tackle. Hard to get hands on from the line of scrimmage. Can hold his own at the point of attack. He's not a super, but he's undersized. Like, I don't know if I have his, I don't think I have his weight, his draft profile up here, but he's a great pass rusher, but maybe never had the talent around him, like I said, at Georgia Tech. Situational pass rusher. He's a little bit undersized. He is going to get, if the run is going towards his side, if they're running it towards his side, he's not going to be a guy who's going to take on double teams or, really take on double teams or anchor one side of the defensive line. So situational, this is a guy that the Niners, he is very good in coverage. He's a true 3-4 defensive end who can drop back. He had one of the highest coverage grades from PFF that a defensive lineman has had. I had a 90 PFF grade over for coverage, one of the best defensive ends in coverage. So he's a guy who is going to give offensive coordinator fits when they're scheming against him, because you don't know, he could drop into coverage and play meaningful snaps at outside linebacker. So a good 3-4 defensive end that truly you're seeing the Raheem Morris effect already come into this 49ers draft, because I don't see this as a player that Robert Saleh would have drafted last year. I don't. So I would say, and he had 10 sacks last year. Niners have Keon White. The reason why, like, coming into this draft, I said, they really just need a situational pass rusher, because the Niners have Keon White. They have Mykel Williams when he comes back, who are both first and second down defensive ends. So if this guy's only playing third, hopefully he can develop into a first and second down guy. But if this guy is just a third down pass rusher for you, I'm not mad at it, because it's in the third round. So I would say it's a steal in the third, because this guy's genuinely a guy who has so much polish in the pass rush, in passing down, so much polish that he could get you 9 to 10 sacks per year. So yeah, he wouldn't have been my first choice, but at pick 70, it really comes down to, who do you want? Who's your favorite edge rusher? So that's my grade. I would say that's a B grade, Romello Height. Now, the next guy, I already talked to him a little bit. I'm not going to even really harp on him much. Kalen Black, the running back out of Indiana. I gave this an F grade. And here's the reason why, okay? Let's go to my favorite pick and my least favorite pick. This is my least favorite pick. And this is why I say this. Because what did you see? I mean, he doesn't have any experience, Kalen Black, in the pass game. You need a prototype running back that can kind of replace what Christian McCaffrey does. They even said that in their pressers, Kyle Shanahan. But he doesn't have any experience in the run game or in the pass game. There wasn't... I just want to ask Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, what did you see in him that you didn't see in Nick Singleton or Emmett Johnson? Nick Singleton, running back from Penn State. Emmett Johnson, running back from Nebraska. Emmett Johnson won in the 5th round of the Chiefs. Nick Singleton went in the 5th round, I believe, too. Like, what did you see in Kalen Black? I mean, it's not like he had better production than Nick Singleton or Emmett Johnson. It's not like he was better in the pass game. What he is, I mean, I will say, he is a hard runner and has really good contact balance. He's going to burst through the hole at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and he's going to bounce off a couple guys, get you 8 to 9 yards. Had great efficiency in college, 5.6 yards per carry, had 1,000 yards last year. But if we're looking at the draft board, how the draft board fell, the Niners could have gone offensive line at pick 90. Let's look at the draft board one more time. The Niners could have gone offensive line at pick 90. Oh my gosh, it's annoying the heck out of me. I'm just looking on my phone. So the draft board, Kalen Black went at pick 90. Trey Zune, a tackle / center who I would have loved the Niners to get, who could have played guard for us. Jayshon Barham went at pick 92. Jennings Dunker went at pick 96. Let's see in the 4th round. We had Jude Bowery, developmental, really talented tackle, raw tackle, go in the pick 2 of round 4. Febechi Nwewu was one of my draft crushes, went pick 106. Why couldn't the Niners have gone? And I love the Carver Willis pick, but why couldn't the Niners have gone offensive line and then waited to the 5th round to go Emmett Johnson, Nick Singleton, Mike Washington, for God's sake, got drafted. I believe it was 5th round as well. So I just don't get it. Yeah, 4th round. He got drafted pick 122. And Mike Washington was borderline a 2nd round pick, in my opinion. And so it's like, and then also, it was a reach at running back when the first running back, they drafted Kalen Black at pick 90, and then the next running back to go off the board was Jonah Coleman at pick 108. And there was no other running back picked in round 3. So clearly this guy wasn't going to go in the 3rd or 4th round, probably 5th or 6th. And then looking at his film and looking at a guy, say Jamari Taylor, the running back out of Virginia who went undrafted, comparing both of those guys' tapes, because I watched Kalen Black, I watched Jamari Taylor. What was the difference in how impressive those 2 tapes looked? So I'm just like, this was just such a baffling pick, Kalen Black at pick 90. Baffling. I can even understand the Dejon Stribling pick more than I can understand this. It's almost like the Niners fell in love with a couple of prospects and reached to get them. and said, okay, this guy might be going in 30 or 40 picks, but we're just going to get him now because we're afraid that we're going to miss out on him instead of working the board. So, yeah, that was the Kalen Black experience, the pick. But, you know, I do like how he runs. I do like how he fits the Niners system. He's a hard runner. He's a speedy running back. He's 5'9". He's a small guy. But also, like, let's quickly get to what this draft screams for me, especially the first couple picks. Romello Height already needs to put on 15 to 20 pounds. We know that, to become a competent run defender who can kind of anchor that side of the defensive line. So he's a little bit of a project. He's not a 3-down player. Same with Kalen Black. He's not going to play. I'm going to get to my favorite pick, actually, Grayson Holton. But even Carver Willis, who I think is going to have a chance to start this year, isn't going to play. Stribling might not play. Carver Willis might not play week 1 start. Stribling probably, he will have a role in the system. He might be the other outside wide receiver opposite to Mike Evans with Pearsall in the slot. But he might not even get that many meaningful snaps. So what does this draft really scream to you? Niners are preparing for the future. They are preparing for not a lot of these guys to take meaningful snaps in 2026, which I just don't get exactly. Because here's the thing. If you would have drafted TJ Parker at pick 33, he went at pick 35, he would have started for you day 1. Chase Besantis would have started for you day 1 at left guard. So this draft does scream to me planning for the future, but it's also frustrating because it's like, if you're drafting a guy in round 2 or 3, you're wanting him to play meaningful snaps in 2026, and it doesn't really seem like that's going to be the case. So I didn't even go through. I already laid out why they were ironies, why this was an irony, because of the fact that there were especially the Kalen Black pick, there were guys in the 5th that got drafted in the 5th round that genuinely produced more in college, more experience, more explosive, or just no difference between Kalen Black and, the guys that I laid out before. And they went in the 5th round, and this guy goes in round 3. So, all right. So let's go to the O lineman that the Niners drafted. Should I edit that? Let's just do O. There we go. No, still not. Here, let's just do this one. Why I love the Carver Willis pick, and then I'll get into Enrique Cruz in a second. So Niners picked tackle Carver Willis in the 4th round. It was let me just look at the exact pick. It was pick 127. I like this pick. Let me get to my draft profile on him. I honestly fell in love with watching him today. I was watching a breakdown on him, and he fits exactly what the Niners are wanting to do. He's a great fit in the run game. He plays with great leverage. His pad level doesn't get too high. He's not going to be a tackle. He's going to transition to guard just because he doesn't have necessarily the measurables to be a tackle, but plays with great pad level, great leverage. There were plays where I watched him against Oregon where the defensive end gets low on him and he can bend low. He doesn't play upright. He plays with great leverage. And like I said, he's only 303 pounds and he has 32.5-inch arms, which is the 12th percentile. So he is a guard, but I think he can start right away. He's very versatile. He could be a guy who you could start at guard and then move him to center, and maybe he could play a bit at tackle because he did that in college. And he has very smart, has great hands, great mechanics. And the biggest thing with him is the Washington Huskies, because he's a tackle out of Washington. They played him in a lot of outside zone schemes where he would be pulling from left to right, and he'd have the assignment to get to all the way over to the other side of the field, block a linebacker, a cornerback in the second level, and he would do it. He's just a super mobile, super athletic guard that can just run sideline to sideline, side to side. So I think he can start right away. Takes great angles on edge rushers. And like I said before, great bend. So I love the Carver Willis pick. Like, genuinely, because we have, if we're looking at the depth chart, if it will load. Come on, load. There we go. If we're looking at the depth chart, left guard, you've got Connor Colby. He was terrible last year. Got Brett Toth. Potentially he could play, although he might be even a backup center. So maybe not Brett Toth. And then you've got Robert Jones, the guy that we drafted or that we picked up in free agency from a former Cowboys, Dolphins, but he's been injured for a long time. I would say he'd be the first pick at left guard, but this Carver Willis guy is going to be able to compete right away and probably won't start week one because, let's be honest, what rookie offensive lineman except Dominic Pooney, even him, I don't even think he started week one in Kyle Shanahan's system. But I loved this pick. I gave this an A pick. Now, going back to my least favorite, we already talked about Kalen Black. Going back to my least favorite and favorite pick, Grayson Holton, by far favorite pick, A-plus pick. He's the type of guy, he plays with low pad level. He doesn't have insane height or length. He's 6'2", 6'2.5", 293 pounds, but he's a disruptive three technique defensive tackle. Good at moving side to side. Explosive. Has great get off and great swim move. First step is incredible. Knows how to play skinny between the guards and the center because he has that smaller build, but he also doesn't let that 6'2" build get to him. He's great at anchoring. He has great strength for that size because what you're typically looking at out of a defensive tackle is a 6'5" type of guy. But what this screen, but this is why another Raheem Morris pick. Braden Fisk, the defensive lineman, the defensive tackle from the Rams, has a very similar body build to Grayson Holton, the defensive tackle that we drafted out of Oklahoma. Very similar builds. And Braden Fisk is a borderline Pro Bowler for the Rams. So what this screams to me this year, we already talked about earlier about Romello Height, how he's a 3-4 type of defensive end who can also drop in and play linebacker. This year, it screams to me, we have guys who can play the 4-3. We have Alfred Collins who can play the 4-3, but we also have guys like this guy, Grayson Holton, and Osa Odigizua, who can play a more five-man front. This year, we're going to get a lot more five-man fronts out of Raheem Morris's system. We're going to get a lot more 3-4 defensive ends dropping back into coverage. We're going to get a lot more it's going to be an explosive defensive line. I mean, imagine him, Grayson Holton, Bosa, Osa Odigizua, and Romello Height on third downs. Like, that's an elite, explosive, all speed, all explosiveness defensive line. Imagine him, Collins, Bosa, Mykel Williams, or Bosa, Mykel Williams, Osa, and Alfred Collins on a five-man front on first and second down. So I'm just thinking of the ways the Niners are going to be able to now just have the how much flexibility they're going to have in their defensive line, where we're going to potentially play a 5-man front, or we could play a 4-3, or we could play a 3-4, where Romello Height is coming from the linebacker position, the outside linebacker position, and coming in to rush. I mean, the amount of fronts that we're going to be able to use to confuse offensive coordinators is great. And I said the Niners needed a defensive tackle. Because they don't necessarily have any depth behind Osa Odighizuwa. You know, hopefully Sebastian Valdez can break out. CJ West was okay, but you don't want him starting. So now I'm just loving the two picks, Romello Height and Grayson Holton, because now this is truly, could be, ceiling wise, could be a top 5 defensive line at its best. And we've got depth. So, and he can bring pressure from the inside. Like I said, imagine lining him, Osa Odighizuwa, Romello Height, Nick Bosa, you know, maybe throw Alfred Collins in there on third down, or throwing Michael Williams on third down with, I mean, that's just, you're going to get to the quarterback instantly. So this was my favorite pick, A+ pick. Who else we got? We covered Carver Willis. Let's get quickly to these next 3 guys. I'd say the rankings of guys that I like that we drafted in order is Grayson Holton, Carver Willis, Ephesians Prysock, Jaden Duggar, Jayshon Stribling, and would the last one be Kalen Black? Oh, and then also Enrique Cruz. But let's quickly get to Prysock, Ephesians Prysock. This is a guy who, let me get to my notes on him. Actually, another guy that I really liked, Jaden Duggar, the linebacker that we drafted out of Louisiana. We typically see the Niners draft an undersized linebackers that can solely play the will linebacker position. But here's a guy who transitioned from safety to linebacker, Jaden Duggar, the linebacker out of Louisiana, 6'5", 242 pounds, 35-inch arms, 4.6 speed. So just crazy measurables. And from where we drafted him in the 5th round. He's got, I mean, insane. He's going to be an insane chess piece because he can rush from, we can bring him in on blitzes. We can bring him in as an edge defender, as an edge rusher on third downs. Like, genuinely, he had 8 sacks in college. And I already said he showed a lot of character, showed a lot of grit, because he had to put on nearly 50 pounds to transition from safety to linebacker when he was going from Georgetown to Louisiana. And he did that. He added on 50 freaking pounds, this guy. So he's got a frame that the Niners have never drafted before in a linebacker. Last season, just an all-around kind of freak. Last season, he had 125 tackles, 4 sacks. So he's in the backfield getting messy, and he's also sacking the quarterback. 13 tackles for loss. And the main thing that didn't, and you might be thinking, okay, why didn't this guy go earlier in the 5th round? Well, he just hasn't played the position. He's played the position for like 2 years. And that was the main gripe. So of anyone who's going to break out in this draft class, I love this Jaden Duggar pick out of Louisiana. Loved it. I give that one a B+. And then Ephesians Prysock was a corner. Let me add in cornerback Washington. Ephesians Prysock, the cornerback from Washington, was, when I watched him earlier on today, was a guy from, I mean, has the length to play press man corner, but was primarily successful in that 3-man zone, 4-man zone scheme that the Niners like to use a lot. And when I watched him, he kind of has that body type of a Charvarius Ward, which is something that since losing Charvarius Ward 2 years ago, we have not had a guy like that. We had Demondur Lenoir starting last year. We had Upton Stout starting, all smaller corners, but this is a guy who kind of brings that length and to the cornerback position that we haven't seen, frankly, since Charvarius Ward. So at his best, maybe could be a lengthy corner that starts opposite to Lenoir, which I'm excited about. Oh, and then the other corner, obviously, starting opposite to Lenoir is Renardo Green, more of a man-to-man specialist. But I like the length that this guy brings. So loving that pick as well. I would say that's a B pick. I mean, again, the 5th round, a lot of these guys that the Niners were drafting are guys that potentially have great measurables. Like I said, let's look at quickly the measurables on this guy if I had it. I'm not exactly, I don't think I have the measurables in front of me, but measurables are really important. Guys that haven't maybe played the position for a long time, but then you can put them into a system that's going to show their strengths the most, and then they could break out. And yes, they haven't had a ton of production in college, but they have something there that you can work with. So that was another pick. Overall, I'd give this draft I said it was going to be a solid C in the thumbnail. I'd still give this draft I would give it a B. And now that I've gone back and looked at all the players that we drafted, I liked some of the picks we made, but Kalen Black, the running back from Indiana, and the massive and clear reach for Dejon Stribling are just the two picks that taint this draft massively. If we would have gone guard in the 1st round or 2nd round with Basantis, I probably would have given this draft an A. So let's see what else we've got. I think that was it for me as far as grades and everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll probably be back next week. I've got finals coming up, so it's going to be a while, but yeah, this was fun grading the Niners NFL draft for the 2026. They have OTAs next week, so we'll get to see some of these guys and how they fit in a Niners jersey and in the system. You guys have a good rest of your day.